Good afternoon. My name is Paula Dodona. I am the Communications and Outreach Manager at the State Retirement Board. I'm here with Zachary Pierce, Communications Coordinator, and we are here to provide a benefit overview for state employees who are members of the Massachusetts State Employee Retirement System. I want to thank everyone for joining us. This is our first of this kind, so hopefully it goes well. We would ask that we hold the questions until we get to the question slide. Zachary will be monitoring the incoming questions, and we will address them when we get to the question and answer section. So with that, we will get started. The program overview, I'll go over an introduction. And I just want to say that in this PowerPoint, I did add some slides pertaining to the current COVID-19 pandemic and how that affects our office and operation things. So when I get to certain areas, I will be mentioning current events. So we have the eligibility and plan rules, the application process, and post-retirement matters. So as a general update, due to reduce the risk and opportunities of exposure, and per the governor's request, the State Retirement Board offices and all of Treasury offices are closed to the public and staff until further notice. During this time, State Retirement Board staff are working remotely. The issuance of regular monthly benefit payments or other disbursements such as refunds are not impacted. The next scheduled monthly pension benefit will be direct deposited on April 30th, 2020. We are posting updates daily on our website. So if you go to mass.gov/retirement, you'll see the alerts posted at the top of the page. If you see one that you want to know more information about, you can just click on it and see the entire message. We are governed by Massachusetts State Law, Chapter 32. We're overseen by a 5-member board, and it's chaired by State Treasurer Deborah Goldberg. We are in a defined benefit plan, so the formula to calculate our pension is our years of service multiplied by our age factor multiplied by our salary average. Depending upon when you were hired, if you were hired before April 2nd, 2012, it would be the highest 36 consecutive month salary. For those of you hired after pension reform on April 2nd, 2012 or after, your salary average is based on the highest 60 consecutive months salary average, and that does not include any overtime. So as of the beginning of the year, there were about 153,000 members total. That's about 88,000 active state employees and 65,000 retirees and or beneficiaries. Membership is mandatory unless you retire, you're in a position where you are failed to be reelected or reappointed, or you leave your position for any reason. And what mandatory membership means is that you will contribute, instead of Social Security, you will contribute to your annuity account each paycheck. Contributions and investments are managed by the Pension Reserves Investment Management Board, otherwise known as PRIM. If you have any questions about how the investments are doing or what funds they're in, you want to contact PRIM, and they've got a great website, www.mass.gov pension.com. So contributions are mandatory for all members in service. Because we don't pay into Social Security, we are mandated by law to contribute to our annuity. Those of us who were hired on or after July 1st, 1996, we contribute 9% of our gross paycheck each time we get paid. Once our salary hits $30,000, we contribute an additional 2% for salary that is over $30,000. So the only way that you can access the money is you have to quit your state job. That's the only way. You can't access the money unless you terminate your membership with the Massachusetts State Employee Retirement System. If you do that, you can request a direct refund. The board would withhold 20% federal taxes because the money that we contribute into our annuity account is pre-tax. And depending upon your age, it's usually age 59 and a half. If you're younger than that, you may possibly be charged an additional 10% IRS penalty. You would be able to roll over the money to a pre-tax to a financial institution. You want to make sure that you check with your personal financial advisor and tax advisor, because board staff are not authorized to provide you with tax advice. So if you're not sure whether or not you're going to like the private sector and you might want to come back to the public sector, we highly recommend that you leave your annuity savings in your retirement account. The first 2 years that you are separated from service, your account will gain interest. After 2 years, your account will be frozen, but it won't lose any money, but it won't gain any money in interest. So if you are involuntarily separated or you have 10 or more years of creditable service, you would get your contributions back with the regular interest rate, which is 0.01%. If you voluntarily resign with less than 10 years of service, you could get a refund of your contributions plus 3% interest. Members hired before April 2nd, 2012, who withdraw their contributions will be considered brand new members should they return later to service. And members entering the system on or after April 2nd, 2012 will be affected by pension reform. And there's a little bit of different criteria to retire, and we will go over that on later slides. So what is creditable service? If you're a full-time employee, you will earn 1 year of creditable service for each year that you work. If you're a part-time employee, you'll earn creditable service on a prorated basis. So, for example, if you work 6 months out of the year, you would earn 6 months worth of creditable service. It takes each state employee 10 years of full-time service to become vested or eligible to collect a state pension. Therefore, if you work part-time, hypothetically in this case where a person only works 6 months a year, it would take that person 20 years to become eligible or vested to collect a pension versus a full-time employee. There was a court case, Madden versus Crabb. It was an elementary school teacher who worked full-time but found out when she went to retire that her time was reported as erroneously as part-time. So she fought it and she won her court case. So what that means for the rest of us is if you've worked part-time service on or before January 28, 1993, there is a possibility that that part-time service may be credited to you on a full-time basis, provided you paid into a public retirement system, you did not take a refund, or if you took a refund, you paid it back before January 28, 1993. Creditable service purchases, also known as buybacks. In some instances, you may be eligible to add to your creditable service with a buyback. The most common type of buyback is prior service. Someone who quit the state, they liquidated their annuity account, they took a refund. Years later, they returned to state service. Now they want to apply for a buyback of that prior service. Now, while they can do that, if the application goes through our buyback department, it is reviewed against Chapter 32 law. If the time is deemed eligible to be purchased back, you will receive a bill from our buyback department and with options on how you want to buy back that time, how you want to pay for it. You have to be an active member in service at the time of your application, and you should complete and submit the application and send it to the board with any required documentation. Types of service purchases: creditable service is refunded prior service, service to another Massachusetts public retirement system, and in some cases, if eligible, out-of-state teaching. There's also contract service. So if you worked for the state, a state agency, say you were an accountant and you worked as an accountant for 6 years, and your supervisor comes to you and said, you know, good news, we've got an opening on our staff, we can hire you as a full-time benefited state employee. You would be eligible once you've worked full-time for 10 years for the state. You would be able to go back and apply to purchase up to 4 years of that contract service. It could be added onto your 10 years of service. Note that the position, the job description must be substantially similar to the job that the member held upon re-entry into membership of the Massachusetts State Employees Retirement System. Other types of service purchases include veteran service. The maximum amount of military service eligible to be purchased is up to 4 years. You must qualify as a veteran as defined in Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 1. So if you go to our website, mass.gov/retirement, and download the Veteran Service Buyback Form, the cover page spells out what it would take to qualify as a veteran. Veterans who also have active reserve or Massachusetts National Guard service might be able to purchase up to 1 year of creditable service for every 5 years of National Reserve Guard service. So a few current updates from the buyback department. For all of you who are currently in a buyback agreement, making payments, payments that you make via personal checks will be processed as soon as it's feasible for our team. We have very limited, the majority of the staff is working remotely, but there are a few people that are still processing these items. We do appreciate your patience while we continue to review and process the current backlog of service purchase requests. And the best way to communicate with the buyback department, if you have any questions related to a buyback or a service purchase, please send them an email at buyback@tre.state.ma.us. That is the best way to get in touch with them. So as of last August, the average retirement allowance for members was $37,732. There are 4 types of retirement for those of us hired before April 2nd, 2012. That's the regular superannuation, an accidental disability, ordinary disability, and a termination allowance or a Section 10. For all members hired on or after April 2nd, 2012, you are not eligible for a termination retirement allowance. That was stricken with the legislation. Here's a great slide that I like to show. It shows us if you're hired before April 2nd, 2012, and if you're hired on or after, what the criteria is to retire. So if you're hired before April 2nd, 2012, you must be at least a minimum age of 55 with a minimum of 10 years of creditable service, or you can be any age with a minimum of 20 years of creditable service. Your pension is based on the average of your highest 36 consecutive months salary. And again, that is base salary. It does not include any overtime. Those of you hired on or after April 2nd, 2012, due to pension reform, they increased the age. So you must be a minimum age of 60 with 10 years of creditable service. And the higher, if you get approved for a Group 2, you could be age 55 because Group 2 approval would raise your age to age 60. Your salary is based on the highest 5 consecutive year salary or 60 consecutive month salary. And pension reform did away with the be any age with a minimum of 20 years of creditable service. So I'm going into benefit calculations. Hopefully I'm not going too fast here. We will get to the question slide coming up shortly. So superannuation retirement. Superannuation is just an antiquated word for regular retirement. It's a typical retirement based, the calculation is based on your age as of your last birthday. So if you are not yet age 65 and you are hired before April 2nd, 2012, and you're close to your next birthday, it may behoove you to wait until your next birthday to retire so that you get the increase in the age factor. So then we have your length of creditable service, your group classification, and then your highest, either 36 consecutive months of regular compensation or 60 months of regular compensation. So for everyone across the board, our retirement allowance may not exceed 80% of our highest average annual salary. Those of you that qualify for a veteran's premium, that would provide you with an additional $15 per year of state service up to 20 years for a maximum $300 benefit per year. So group classifications. We have Group 1 is general office employees and officials. Group 2, members in this group include probation officers, court officers, certain correctional positions whose major duties require them to have the care, custody, instruction, or supervision over prisoners or persons with mental illness or developmental disabilities. You could see Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 3 for other eligible Group 2 positions. There's quite a list. Group 3 is limited to state police officers. Group 4 members include certain public safety officers and officials and employees, such as police officers, firefighters, and certain correction officers. Group classification, Group 2 and Group 4 classifications are subject to board approval. They are not automatic. So even if you're working in a Group 2 or a Group 4 position, when you go to retire, you can't just automatically claim a Group 2 or a Group 4. We have a group classification application that must be completed within 6 months of your retirement date. The application gets reviewed by a group classifications team and it goes before our board. Our board meets monthly, once a month, usually the last Thursday of the month, and a huge part of the agenda is going over group classifications. If you're approved for a Group 2, it would add 5 years to your age, beginning at age 55. So once you reach age 60, if you're approved for a Group 2 at age 60, you would retire as if you were age 65. After that, your raise can't be raised higher than age 65. Group 4, if you're approved for that, would add 10 years to your age beginning at age 45, or for those hired on or after April 2nd, 2012, you'd have to be 50 years old. So the service is prorated. Members that were hired before the pension reform, April 2nd, 2012, they may elect to have their benefits prorated, but it's not mandatory. For all members who entered service on or after April 2nd, 2012, they have no choice. Their benefits must be prorated. Here's a typical retirement. Group 1, Patricia is 55. And Group 1, she has 20 years of creditable service. Her salary average is $55,000. She is seeking a regular superannuation retirement. So to calculate her benefit, it would be her years of service, which is 20 years, times her age factor, which is 0.015 for age 55. That would tell us that she's eligible for 30% of her annual salary, $55,000. So Patricia's annual pension would be $16,500. Group 2, Ava is 55. She's a member of Group 2 and a veteran. She also has 20 years of service, and her salary average is $55,000. She too is seeking a regular superannuation retirement. So we take her 20 years of service by her age factor. Because she got approved for Group 2, her age factor was raised from 55 to 60. So 60 is a 0.020. So Ava is eligible for 40% of her salary average of $55,000. So that's $22,000. And she also qualifies for the $300 veterans bonus. So her annual pension will be $22,300. So with that, we're going to open it up for questions. So Zachary, I don't know if you're there.
Hi, Paula. I do see one question in here, which is asking, will my retirement be decreased due to Social Security?
So that's a great question. And the answer is no, it's the reverse. Whatever your state pension is, you will, whatever you're eligible for, you'll receive 100% for what you're eligible for. If you collect Social Security, it's the reverse. Your state pension will impact your Social Security benefit. And the only way to find out how much is to consult with a Social Security representative.
Another question is, where would I be able to find the age factors? And also, I think a related question is, do we have a table that shows the age percentages?
Yes, so the charts are posted on our website, on our all. If you go to our all forms page, there's a calculation chart, retirement chart posted, one for those of us hired before April 2nd, 2012, and then there's one for those of you hired on or after April 2nd, 2012. And what I will do is, for everyone that participated, I see that we have about 56 attendees, I will send an email with this presentation and the pension charts to you after the webinar concludes. And you can look on the back of the pension chart. It'll have the age factors there.
That's awesome. That actually answered another person's question, which was if they could get a copy of the slides. One person was wondering if there is a maximum age factor.
So there is a maximum age factor. The age factor for those of us hired before April 2nd, 2012 is age 65. So as long as you continue to work until your 65th birthday, each birthday, your age factor will go up a little bit. So if you are hired on or after April 2nd, 2012, the maximum age factor is age 67. So if you continue to work until you're age 67, each birthday, the age factor would go up, but then it would max out at either age 65 or 67. So if you continue working after those ages, while your age factor will be maxed out, your years of service will continue to increase.
We have one individual who's asking if we could please show the information for the buyback program for veterans.
So the buyback program for veterans is a form. So if you send an email to us, and that would be, and it's going to be on the last slide, but it's MSRB Communications with an S at tre.state.ma.us. Either Zachary or myself can email you the veteran buyback form, and it will have all the data that you need on there.
How do we arrange for health insurance?
So health insurance, that's a great question. That is through the Group Insurance Commission. So you would need to reach out to the Group Insurance Commission.
One person's asking, if I submit my retirement application 90 days in advance of my retirement date, can I change my mind prior to my retirement date?
Yes, you absolutely can change it right up until the day of your retirement, and we will go over that in a few slides.
So we have a question from El Salvador. He asks, I worked for 3 years for municipality, 22 years for the state. I withdrew my funds. I now work for the state and I want to pay back just my municipal service. Can I do that?
Yes, absolutely, you can do that. So what you want to do is fill out a buyback form and send it into our office to get the process going. And then the buyback team will assist you on how to do that. And I just want to say, with the caveat that after they research it, the service is deemed eligible to be purchased. But that's what you want to do.
If we're not sure how many years of service we have in total, as there's a combination of full and part-time service, where can we find the total hours?
So you can send an email to Zachary and myself, again at MSRB Communications, and just ask us how much creditable service do I have, and both Zachary and I, we can look it up and we can email that right over to you.
Laura is asking, she has a two-part question. So the first part is there are a lot of questions around the group status of state special police officers. She says, we have been told that we need to go through an appeals process regarding our job classification. What group would we be in if we appealed to the current state police classification? And has that been successful in the past?
So that's a great question, and honestly, I don't have the answer to that. That would be a question for our group classification team that are, handling all of that. So if you could you email your question to us? We'll make sure that we get it into the hands of the group classification team, and so that we can get you an accurate answer.
Her second part of that question is what types of documentation is necessary when applying for group classification?
So all you need to do is fill out a group classification application. It's posted on our website, and you can follow the instructions on the application as far as what's needed. And we highly recommend that you include your job description for each position that you're applying for. So if you have worked for 30 years, and in the 30 years you've worked 3 different group classification 2 jobs, you would need to submit an application if you were hired after April 2nd, 2012 for each one of those positions separately.
We have a question. How many years do you receive your pension amount after retiring?
You receive your pension until you pass away.
And another person, how long does it take for the initial monthly retirement benefit to be paid after retirement date?
So after retirement date, it typically takes 60 to 90 days. So retirees get paid once a month. They get paid on the last business day of the month. So we only have one cutoff date per month. So if we, get everything that we need to process your retirement application, which means we need all the information from your former HR departments. They're the ones who verify your salary and they verify your dates of service. So as long as we have all of that information, we can then calculate your benefit.
And the last question I see, at least for the time being, is during the first year of retirement, how many hours per week can I work at the same agency I retired from?
So there is a limit to how many hours that you can work, and we are going to delve into that in a few slides.
Awesome.
So I'd ask you to hold off.
That's all the questions I see at the moment, but I'll keep monitoring this so I can send over some the next time I see the next bunch come in.
Great. Thank you, Zachary. So I'm going to continue. So accidental disability is employment related, and the calculations would be based on either you would receive 72% of what your salary average was on the date of injury, or the last 12 months working average plus your annuity. This pension is not federally taxable. Ordinary disability is non-employment related. If, God forbid, you become sick and you're not able to work anymore, if you have 10 years of full-time creditable service, but you're not yet age 55, you could apply for an ordinary disability. And if approved, it would raise your age to 55 and then calculate your retirement benefit as if it was a regular retirement benefit. Veterans, regardless of what their age, might be eligible for 50% of their last year's salary average under option A. This pension is federally taxable. So accidental or ordinary disability retirement, the approval requirements can be lengthy. There's examinations by independent physicians, either a joint panel of physicians or 3 individual physician examinations, then it goes to the board, and in some cases, PARAC approval. So it can be a lengthy process. And so currently, due to the pandemic, disability application, the medical panel examinations just resumed. They had stopped due to the pandemic, but they are now back on again, and it's going to be either through a records, just a plain records review, or teleconferencing. There won't be any in-person medical examinations. So as long as the member, the retirement board, the employer, and the medical panel all agree, the examination can take place via a records review or teleconferencing. Each party would need to sign a waiver indicating their agreement, consent to the alternative process. This accommodation will allow members' examinations to continue moving forward. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Kate Hogan at PARAC, and her email address is khogan@per.state.ma.us. And again, I will email this presentation to everyone after the seminar so that you all have this information. The disability unit within the State Retirement Board is also continuing to submit requests for medical panel examinations for any applications that meet the criteria. So we're hoping to keep things moving and reduce any further delay as this situation continues. So termination retirement allowance, unfortunately, those of you hired on or after April 2nd, 2012 are not eligible. For those of you hired prior to April 2nd, 2012, you may be eligible for this. You must have a minimum of 20 years of full-time creditable service and be involuntarily terminated at any age, or you have 30 years or more of full-time creditable service, but you're under the age of 55. So a termination retirement allowance is calculated 1/3 of your 3-year highest salary average plus your annuity, which is usually comes out to be 42 to 48% of your salary average. Again, this provision is only available to members who entered into service before April 2nd, 2012. Members 55 or over are eligible if involuntarily terminated between 20 or 30 years of service. Members 55, members 55 with over 30 years of service are not eligible for this. Members who are under the age of 55 are eligible with 30 years or more of service. It's very important to note, if you accept any incentive payment to retire or to leave your position, it automatically disqualifies you for a Section 10 retirement. So if you find yourself in the situation, your supervisor comes to you and said that they need to let you go for whatever reason, you want to contact the retirement board to see, we can calculate your benefit both ways under a regular superannuation versus a termination to see which benefit, to see what you're eligible for and which benefit might be better for you. But remember, do not accept any monetary incentive, otherwise you would be disqualified for a termination retirement allowance. So option D is a beneficiary, it's a survivor benefit for active employees. Members must have at least 2 years of creditable service. Active members can complete an option D form naming one beneficiary. It's either your spouse, unmarried former spouse, a child, a parent, or a sibling. And please note, An eligible spouse has the first right option to accept the benefit or waive their rights to it in any case. So if you're married, you really don't need to fill out an option D form. You only want to fill it out if you want to name someone other than your spouse. The form must be witnessed by someone other than the option D beneficiary designated on the completed form. If your designated beneficiary ends up being your witness, it will invalidate the form. If upon an active member's death, there is no surviving spouse or minor child and no option D form on file, then either a lump sum refund of account will be provided to the beneficiary on record, if there's a beneficiary on record, or a lump sum payment to the member's estate if no beneficiary is on record. Note, the option D designation form becomes void upon retiring, because when you retire, you then select either option A, B, or C when you retire. So group insurance annual benefit statement mailing, they just mailed out the annual statements. Everyone should have received one. If you subscribe to group insurance, health insurance benefits, page 1 covers your benefits through Group Insurance Commission. The reverse side is from us, the State Retirement Board, and it will list your beneficiaries that are currently on record with the Retirement Board. So you want to check that statement. I know I got mine yesterday, and I think Zachary, you got yours too. So everyone should be checking their mail. And in the mailing, if you see that the beneficiaries on this form are not correct and you want to change it, you can send the beneficiary change form, fill it out, and mail it in the blue envelope that was included in the statement. And just please remember that the beneficiaries listed for the Group Insurance Commission on page 1 can be different than the beneficiaries you listed that show up on page 2, which is the Retirement Board. We are two entirely separate agencies. We cannot see each other's databases. So if you need to change your beneficiary on file with the Group Insurance Commission, you would need to reach out separately and directly to the Group Insurance Commission. So I hope this information helps everyone. This is a very important document. So with that, we'll stop again for questions.
So the first question that I see here that popped in was, can I buy back a portion of my prior year service?
So without knowing the specifics, the only thing that we can ask you to do is to submit a buyback form to the buyback team. That gets the process going, and the buyback team will do all the research, and then they will get back to you and let you know for sure.
I'm Group 1 and age 67, but will turn 68 in mid-July. Is there an increase in my pension benefit if I wait until after I turn 68?
The only increase, I'm going to assume that you were hired on or before April 2nd, 2012. So the age factor would have maxed out at age 65. So your birthday at this point wouldn't factor. It would be your years of service that would bump up the benefit a little bit.
When was the last annual pension balance statement mailed?
That was mailed last spring, 2019, and I can tell you that we are working on this year's mailing, and we expect those statements to be mailed this spring soon.
And Maria asks, should we file a Form D? I believe she's referring to the Option D form.
Yep. Should you? We can't advise you one way or the other. It's entirely up to you and your individual circumstances.
And that's all the questions I'm seeing at the moment.
Okay, so we'll keep going here. The application process. So we just want to say that, in light of the current pandemic and everything that's going on, regular mail delivery to the MSRB office in Boston continues, and staff is processing documents that are received. We strongly encourage anyone and everyone to continue mailing documents as needed to the board's Boston office. If your request is not time sensitive, we ask that you defer submitting it until a later date. You are not required to also email a document that you have mailed. If you email documents in addition to mailing them to our office, the duplication may slow down the processing of a particular transaction. If you are mailing documents to our office, please just make a copy for yourself and jot down on the top of the first page the date that you mailed it and from where, what post office or how you mailed it for your records. For most documents, we will honor the postmarked date as the date of receipt on what you're submitting. If you do email documents to the retirement board, please remember, do not include your entire social security number, dates of birth, bank account numbers in any email correspondence or on any forms. Just include the last 4 digits of your social security number or your MSRB ID number if you know it. Your MSRB ID number is in the top right corner of your annual statement. So if you keep your annual statements, you will have that ID number on hand. Please use the dedicated email addresses listed on the next slide for your specific transaction requests. If you're emailing a request, it does help to put your name and your MSRB ID number if you know it, or your employee ID number in the subject line. Please remember to submit multi-page documents as one document and not separate pages. So some people, if you've got, a 15-page document, some people are scanning it in one page at a time. So it turns out to be 15 separate PDFs instead of one document PDF. It makes it a little difficult on our end to try to manage it. And so then just attach your document and send your email. So we do have the slide with all the email addresses is at the end of this presentation. So you can file your retirement application up to 120 days in advance or 60 days after your last day on payroll. If you file more than 60 days after your last day on payroll, your effective date will be 15 days after the date that the retirement board receives your application. You can withdraw your retirement application at any time up until the day that you want to retire. So in these circumstances, we have had a few people decide that they were going to retire in April or May, and they've decided to continue working. So what we ask they do is to send us an email and then follow it up with a written request that you put in the mail. Very important. If anyone has submitted a retirement application and you're thinking you want to change your mind, in normal circumstances, we'd need that written letter received in hand in our office. However, given the circumstances, shoot us an email as soon as you know you're going to make the change so that we can add that to your record, and then you can follow up with a written letter in the mail. The application, there is an option form with a witness signature. So on the option form, if you're married, your spouse has to sign as the witness so that both they and you know what option you selected. If you're not married, you still need a witness to sign the form. It protects you and it protects the retirement board. There's a W-4P federal tax form. We only pay federal taxes on our annuity. If you retire and live in Massachusetts or New Hampshire, you don't pay any state tax. There's the direct deposit form. Direct deposit is mandatory, so you'd need to fill that out. There's authorization for filing information electronically after you retire. So if you move, you change your address, you change your bank, direct deposit information, there is an authorization form in there to be able to do some things through email. And then depending on your circumstances, we would need copies of some documents, birth certificate, marriage certificate. For veterans, we might need a DD 214, etc. When you retire, you have 3 options: option A, B, or C. Option A would provide you with the maximum eligible benefit that you're entitled to. Factored as of your last birthday. So if you're not yet age 65 or 67 and you're close to your birthday, you might want to work until you reach that next birthday and retire on your birthday to get the higher age factor. All benefits would cease upon your death, and the final check at the time of your death would be made payable to your estate depending on what time of the month that you passed. Option B protects your annuity a little bit, so there would be a 1 to 5% reduction in your benefit, but it would make your annuity, the money that you saved over the lifetime of your career, last a little bit longer. It's also factored as of your last birthday. You may choose 1 or more people to be your beneficiary. The beneficiary does not need to be related to you, and you may change these beneficiaries at any time. If you're retired, usually when you get between 8 and 12 years of retirement, your annuity account has no money left in it because each one of our monthly retirement benefit is 2 parts. One part is the part that we contributed portion over our lifetime. The other part comes from the PRIM retirement fund. So you don't have to worry though, your pension payment would never change. It would just be that you may outlive the option B benefit, that if you passed, whoever your beneficiary was, there would be no money left to pay out. Option C is the only joint survivor allowance benefit. There would be usually it's a typical estimated 7 to 15% reduction in your monthly benefit because the board needs to set aside funds to pay to your beneficiary after you pass away. And the farther apart you are in age to your beneficiary, the higher the deduction might be. Should your option C beneficiary predecease you, you would notify the board, submit the death certificate, and you would be popped up from option C to the maximum benefit option A. It is factored again as of your nearest birthday, and the eligible beneficiaries under option C would be a spouse, unmarried former spouse, a parent, a sibling, or a child. I'm going to stop here just to ask before I get into post-retirement matters if anyone had any questions on that part.
Hi, Paula. I see a couple questions that popped in. One question, both my wife and I are age 67. If I choose option C, will the reduction factor be closer to 7% than to 15?
Yes, it absolutely would. Because you're both the same age, the percentage would be on the lower side.
Carol was asking for clarification if you said that the pension is not subject to Massachusetts state tax.
No, if you retire and you live in the state of Massachusetts, you will pay no state tax on your pension.
Stephen asked, I was hired on 7/6/10. What date do I retire to have a minimum of 10 years of service?
So, all things considered, hypothetically, if you started July 2010, you would think July 2020, as long as you worked full time for these 10 years and don't have any service off the book for like medical leave or anything like that, it could be this July, provided you are age 55.
Are there incentive payments for giving 1 year advance notice of retirement?
No, no such thing.
And the last question I see here is, can
They
you...
do that,
Oh,
and
sorry.
sorry, I think they do that for teachers. I know my sister-in-law is a teacher, and she was talking about putting her papers in, and she said that there was some kind of incentive if she notified them a year in advance. So the state employees retirement system does not do that, but I think the teachers retirement system, which is a separate system, I think that they might do something like that.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Can you explain the difference between the pension and the annuity?
So our pension payment is made up of two parts. The annuity is the bank account that we contribute towards our entire career. So every paycheck, we see a retirement deduction on our pay stub, and that money was deposited into our annuity account. So that's the annuity statement that we receive every spring, tells us how much we have saved towards retirement. The pension is the actual payment, the monthly payment that we would get in retirement. And it's made up of two pieces. The annuity, the part, all the money that we've contributed, plus the amount of money that the state kicks in through the pension fund.
The last question I see here is, I see the session is being recorded. Can I get a copy of the recording?
We are going to post the recording on our website, and once it's posted, we will send a link to all of those who attended.
Awesome. And so far, that's the last of the questions that I see.
Okay, so we're nearing the end here. For those retired, there might be a cost of living adjustment. It is legislatively, if it's approved. So retirees would be eligible for a cost of living adjustment on July 1st of the second fiscal year following the year in which their retirement first took effect. So you'd need to retire by June 30th, 2020 to be eligible for a COLA on July 1st, 2021. That's provided that the legislature approves it. This is a line item in the governor's annual budget, and it's also a line item in the Senate budget, in the House of Representative budget. They all recommend what they think it should be, and then they decide upon what it's going to be, and then the governor signs the budget. The last 8 years, it was 3% increase of the first $13,000 of a retiree's pension. So it's currently $32.50 per month maxed out at $390 annually. And here, the taxes on your state pension, we don't pay any state taxes in Massachusetts, and there's 15 other states that we don't pay: Alabama, Alaska, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. If you retire to any other state, or if you retire in a foreign country, you definitely want to research their tax laws to find out how their tax laws will impact your state pension. Survivor benefits, retirees, let your survivors know what to do upon your death. They need to contact the State Retirement Board immediately to stop the direct deposit of your pension benefit going into your checking account. If you have anyone on your checking account, an adult child or someone, they need to know that they cannot spend that money. Any money that was deposited into your checking account beyond the day that you passed will have to be returned to the board before we can carry out whichever retirement option you chose. The board will need to receive a copy of your death certificate, and your survivors will need to contact the Group Insurance Commission separately for any applicable benefits such as health insurance, life insurance. They are a separate agency. Public sector working after retirement. So the limit was 960 hours per calendar year, or the total earnings between the difference between what your retirement allowance is and what your current salary of the position is from which you're retired. After you've been retired for one full calendar year, you may earn an additional $15,000 per year beyond the limitations listed. However, we want to let you know that the governor just signed into legislation Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020 regarding post-retirement work in the public sector. This legislation temporarily lifts the retiree earning limits. Section 14 of this bill outlines the changes being made, which is this waiver allows most public retirees to serve in public positions for the balance of 2020 without restrictions on hours or earnings. The hours worked and earnings received during the COVID-19 state of emergency period, which began on March 10, 2020, will not count against the 2020 limits, but the other service before and after the designated emergency period would count towards the annual limits. Please note, disability retirees are excluded from this waiver, and they need to continue to observe their earnings limits. Retirees should consult with their employers regarding their earnings limits and how the legislation will impact it. Retirees should also ask directly with the appropriate bargaining unit if you're working in a union benefited position as a retiree, as further restrictions may apply. This exclusion only applies to public retirees who are seeking to or already work in a public position for the state, county, or municipality. Those who work in the private sector, government jobs outside of Massachusetts, or the federal government are not impacted by the limits of Mass General Law, Chapter 32, Section 91. We do have the entire notice pertaining to this waiver posted on our website, mass.gov/retirement. If you wish In normal circumstances, if you were to continue working, then you must request to waive your retirement allowance under Section 91A, or in certain circumstances, retired members may request to be reinstated to active service under Section 105. There are certain conditions must be met by the member, including the member would have to repay all of the retirement benefits received to date, and they would need to work an additional 5 years after their reinstatement to active service before they could apply to retire again. So if you have questions about this, you can contact the disability department at the retirement board. Private sector employment is usually unlimited earnings for those of you collecting a standard superannuation retirement. Restrictions do apply to other types of retirement, especially for disability retirement. Forfeiture of benefits, instances where your retirement benefit or accumulated deductions may be forfeited, could happen if you misappropriate government funds or property, or you violated certain provisions of the Mass Conflict of Interest law, or you have violated laws applicable to your office or your position. The Group Insurance Commission, as we mentioned, is a separate agency. I just want to mention that right now it's open enrollment. It started this week, Monday, April 6th, and they're extending it due to the circumstances to June 1st, but now is the time. It's the once-a-year opportunity. If you wanted to change your health insurance, your dental carrier, life insurance options, now would be the time to do it. You can contact their office, 617-727-2310, extension 2. Please note that GIC direct bills premiums after you retire, but you will have to pay the premiums while you're waiting for your first pension check. The direct deposit, the automatic deduction for the monthly premium doesn't kick in until your second pension payment. And it's very important when you receive the bill that you pay the bill. Pardon me. Regardless of the option that you choose, a retirement option, A, B, or C, your spouse can continue health insurance at a 10% rate, provided they don't remarry. Social Security, we can't really provide too much on Social Security as it's a federal benefit, but we can say they do not impact your state retirement benefit. However, your Social Security benefits might be offset due to the windfall elimination provision or the government pension offset. If you have 30 years or more of substantial private sector earnings under Social Security, you may be exempt. Excuse me. You can create your own Social Security account at www.socialsecurity.gov, My Account. All Social Security questions should be directed to them, and here's the contact information. Vacation and sick pay is handled by your department or agency from where you're retiring. You might be able to defer the payout into your SMART plan. You would need to contact the SMART plan for instructions on how to do that. Here is the slide with all the email contacts. This is the best way to reach the retirement board. The main email, srb@tre.state.ma.us. Communications team, that is Zachary and myself. Again, if you have questions, you can email them to us and we'll make sure that we route it to the right person. If you have survivor benefits, if you need to report a member of a death or a survivor's death, you can email the survivor benefits team direct. Refund rollovers, the buyback team, board reporting team, disability team. Here are all the email addresses. And for individuals who have legal documents that need to be submitted for review, such as a proposed or a draft domestic relations order or workman's compensation, anything like that, you can submit it to our legal team for review. If you do have need to do a domestic relations order, it's best that you have the board review it before you have the legal team and the court approve it, just in case, so we can make sure that we can carry out the rules in the relation. Here's the telephone number with all the different extensions. We are responding to messages that are being left on our phone lines. Please follow us on social media. For the latest updates, go to mass.gov/retirement. All the latest news and alerts and updates are posted at the top of the page. We are very active on Twitter and Facebook. We host a weekly Facebook show. It's called Weekly Coffee or Tea with MSRB every Wednesday morning. Zachary will be hosting it tomorrow morning. You can send your questions through Facebook. Our main office, as we mentioned, is closed to the public, but phone number, email is listed here. And with that, we'll just finish out with any remaining questions.
I don't see any new ones popped in, but I'll give them a couple minutes just in case any come in.
Okay, that would be great. And just as a reminder, I will email the presentation along with the charts to all attendees, or Zach can do that. And then we're gonna try to get the recording cleaned up and posted. We do have a YouTube channel where we post our videos and then we link to them through our mass.gov website.
So we had a question that just popped in. Where can we get more information on the SMART plan? Do you have a webinar for that?
So starting, yes, we're going to partner with SMART Plan starting next week. So if you want to watch our website under events, we'll be posting all these upcoming webinars there. They are going to do a presentation. And for now, if you have questions, they are up and running. Answering calls, email, they can do virtual appointments with you if you want to talk about anything. You can send them an email to SMART, S-M-A-R-T, at empower-retirement.com. And anyone who has specific interest wants to be connected with a SMART team representative, you can send Zachary and myself an email to MSRB Communications, and we can forward your email over to the SMART team if needed.
The next question that just popped in, I'm 64 and plan on retiring at the end of August 2020 at 20 years of employment. What is the benefit to wait until 65?
Again, the age factor, so it's all prorated. So the age factor is as of your last birthday. So if you retire before you turn 65, your benefit will be calculated as if you're age 64. If you wait until you're 65, then you will max out the age factor. And the only way to know the difference would be in the benefit would be to request a benefit estimate. You could send an email to srb@tre.state.ma.us to request a benefit estimate. And I can tell you there is a queue. We are, there is a little bit of a backlog given the circumstances for benefit requests, estimate requests, which is understandable. We're trying to make sure we keep everyone, all the other core processes moving smoothly.
The next question, how soon after an application is received by the MSRB will the MSRB confirm receipt back to the submitter?
So in regular circumstances, you would receive a confirmation letter, usually within 10 to 21 days. Given these circumstances, it may take 4 to 6 weeks to receive a confirmation that we received your retirement application. But again, if you send an email to either SRB or MSRB Communications, we do have a way we can look it up in our system and confirm that it was received and scanned in. So you could just send an email to make sure that it was received and scanned in.
We have a question. I may have missed the response. How long between the time one retiree does it take to receive? One retires does it take to receive the first payment? I think this person's referring to a question they asked earlier, but I think they just missed the response that you provided.
It takes 60 to 90 days to receive your first direct deposit paycheck, and that would be retroactive. If there's a severe hardship, you could apply for an advance against that payment, and you could send us an email and we can send you the application.
The last question I see at the moment is, I work at a jail in Massachusetts as a nurse. What section would I fall under? And they say 1, 2, or 3. I believe they're referring to the group classification.
So group 1 is general employees, so it wouldn't be that. And group 3 is exclusive to state police officers, so it wouldn't be that. It would either be a 2 or a 4 if it's eligible. And that would be a question for our group classification team.
And one more just popped in. Is your monthly benefit payment a paper check or direct deposit?
It's mandatory that it's direct deposit. So part of the retirement application is the direct deposit form that you need to fill out.
And let's give it a couple more moments just to see if anything else comes in. That was the last question as at the time being.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you find this beneficial. We are hosting another one tomorrow morning, same exact presentation at 10 a.m. And we'll be doing these weekly. And next week, we will partner with the SMART Plan. So after we do this presentation, the SMART Plan would present after us. So thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions, the top 2 email contacts here on your screen. Don't hesitate to send us an email, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So,
All right. And I don't see any other questions popping in, so I think that's.
all right. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope everyone is safe and healthy, and we wish everyone all the best. Thank you for joining us.